Microphone. All right, so let's see. We're going to analyze A or B and C. How about that? Is that what it was? Pretty close. All right. So to do that, we have to break down what A is doing, break down what B can do, break down what C can do. Since A could be true or false, B could be true or false, and C could be true or false, that gives us 2 times 2 times 2 possible outcomes. 2 times 2 is 8. And so the easiest way to make a truth table for this would be to start with A. And of the 8 possible outcomes for A, we list the first 4 as true and the second 4 as false. So we'll start building our table.
Excuse me, Ms. Parker.
Yes.
Would you move the whiteboard or the camera a little bit?
Oh.
Because I cannot see the whiteboard.
You can't see anything, right? I knew that, and I got that recorded too. Nice. Good job. Okay, so I'm switching from the camera to the whiteboard. There you go. Now you can see it, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, so next we play with B. And since A went 4 and then 4, B is going to go by 2s, is the pattern that the book uses. That's a good one. So we go true, true, false, false, true, true, false, false. And then C will go every other one. So C will run true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false. And in the homework, they immediately have the ultimate goal in the next column, but we're going to build up to it. According to the parentheses, I should look at A or B first. So I'm going to make a new column for A or B. So remember, or means one has to be true, or the other has to be true, or they could both be true, and the whole thing is true. So the only time an or is false is if both pieces are false. So we only need to look at A and B. So as long as there's a true for A or B, we're good. So first line, that's true. Second line, true. Third line is false, false. The or is false. Fourth line, that's false, false. That's false again. And then we are true the rest of the time, aren't we? A or B is true the rest of the time, so the or is true. Moving through there. Okay, so we have the results of A or B. We have C here. Now we're ready to do the final one, which is parentheses A or B, then combine that with and C. So I'm just going to rewrite that down here. And let's see, what does and require for a true?
Both.
Yeah, they both have to be true, otherwise it's false. Okay, so now we're just comparing these last 2 columns here. So true, true, and is true. False, true, and is false. They both have to be true for and to say true. What about true, false? And says false. False, false, and says false. True, true, and says true. That's okay. False, true, false for and, true, true, and false, true. So we have just built the truth table for A or B combined with and C.
So for and, they both have to be true, true.
Yes, for and they both have to be.
And for or, it's
You
just
better?
one has to be true.
Homework.
And for or, only one has to be true.
Yes, for and only one has to be, sorry, for or only one has to be true to get a true from the end. For and, they both have to be true. You gotta choose and. So these are the final results for that. Based on the truth of A, B, and C.
So A, B, and C just follow that pattern, basically, no matter what. Just like
Yeah, whenever you have three things, that's the pattern for three things. Yeah. I draw the pattern for four things, but I'd have to write awfully tiny. Because then you would have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 2 to the fourth power, which means there'd be 16 rows in a table to figure it out. It's doable, it just takes a while. So usually 3 is enough. Okay. Let's take a look at my notes. There, right there. Okay, so I want to talk about syllogisms a little bit. Again, looked at that last time. And then we'll review the idea of a contrapositive. So a syllogism is when you have a couple of premises in a row and they lead to some shortcut conclusion. And so the usual way, symbolically, you see it written up. You have some statement P, it implies Q is true. And you have some statement, that same statement Q, it shows some other statement R is true. We take those and put them together, and we end up with skipping over Q, that if P is true, then R must be true. So if we have a collection of statements that fit that pattern is called a syllogism. And then people try to make these statements that are like a syllogism, but they don't work, and they're just false conclusions. So let's see, the example I was thinking about earlier today was, so my statement P, if you study math daily, then you will do good math. So P is you study math daily. Q is you will do good math. So those are my statements thrown together with an if and an M. So to do a QR, that means I have to start off as if you do good math. So if you do good math, then you will pass your math class. So can someone tell me a way I can logically shorten all of that there?
study math daily.
Yeah, if you study, that's the logical conclusion. Yeah, if you study math daily, you will pass your math class. That final conclusion is the syllogism based on the previous two. Better. If you study math daily, then you will pass your math class. Suppose I threw a different second sentence in there. If you go to bed early every night, you will pass your math class. So that would be my second sentence. Right? So then I could replace the syllogism with, say, if you go to bed early, you will do good math. Is that a logical conclusion? So new second sentence, or language screen. Go to bed early. You pass your math class. So let's suppose that was my second sentence. So I can ignore this one right here. Can we make a syllogism out of that? The first sentence, if you study math daily, then you will do good math. If you go to bed early, you will pass your math class. Is there any connection between those two statements? Like, could I claim then that if you go to bed early, you'll do good math? Or that if you, let's look at this case, do math every day, you'll pass your math class? I don't have any connection between this sentence and the other sentence. But people do this kind of thing all the time. They'll take two sentences that kind of sort of relate, but not exactly, and they'll use them to make a new conclusion when they have no right to do so. The thing to make the connection is one of the statements must end with something that the other statement begins with. That's the connection, right? Here and here. That's the connection. So we're going to test this out again with a slightly different set of sentences. Does anybody remember what contrapositive means? It means opposite. It's a little bit more than that. So if I wanted to make the contrapositive of the statement, this first one here, if you study math daily, then you will do good math. Flipping is part of it. What's the other part of making a contrapositive? I spent a little bit of time playing with this before. What else do we do besides flip statements?
Oh, you use your
Negate, opposite, negate, yeah. So what we want to do is we want to reverse this and negate it. So instead of you study math daily, you don't study math daily. That would be the opposite, negate. You do good math, you don't do good math. Would be the opposite. And we want to flip it. So what I'd like you to do is write these three statements down as contrapositives. And then we'll analyze to see if it still makes sense. So write the contrapositive of the first statement. Under it, write the contrapositive of the second statement. Under that, write the contrapositive of the third statement. So you have to change the order and give them both the opposite meaning. Give it a try, see what you get. Write some down. Contrapositive, flip, and negate. And I'll write mine down. We'll talk about it. Get a glass of water. All right, everybody got 3 sentences written down, or almost pretty close? Okay, I'm gonna put mine up on the board. I already typed them up earlier, so I'm gonna save the time of you watching them. Blow this up a touch. Okay, so here's what I believe those sentences should be. If you do not do good math, then you did not study math daily. Something close to that should be the contrapositive of the first sentence. So I'll put the 2 sentences, sets of sentences side by side. So the first sentence was originally, if you study math daily, then you will do good at math, then you will do good math, reverse and negate. If you do not do good math, right, that comes to the beginning, then you did not study math daily. So that's the contrapositive sentence number 1. Sentence number 2 was, if you do good math, then you will pass your math class. If we reverse and negate, we get, if you did not pass your math class, then you did not do good math. So that should be your second sentence should be pretty close to that. And the last one, if you did not pass your math class, then you did not study math daily. So those are 3 contrapositives based on the original 3 sentences we started with. Questions on forming a contrapositive? Does anybody remember why I was so excited about contrapositive besides it sounds cool as a word? I was excited about it last class. Anybody remember why I was excited about it?
I learned this as like, I don't know how to say exactly, but I know when we first went over this, it was something like the first statement's true, the last one.
Yeah, right. So if the original sentence is true, the contrapositive will be true. If the original sentence is false, the contrapositive has to be false. Their fates go hand in hand. That's why contrapositive is so cool, because if you get a statement and you're like, this is kind of weird, I don't quite get it, and you rephrase it as the contrapositive, and then it makes more sense to you, they mean the same thing. So you pick the better sentence, which is kind of cool. All right, now, so my claim is that if the original sentences were true, the contrapositives have to be true. And if the original group of sentences made a syllogism, I believe then that the new group of sentences should also form a syllogism. They should flow, and we should believe it. So that's the thing you need to judge for yourself next. Do the first 2 sentences logically lead to the 3rd sentence? We just wrote them down. That doesn't mean they're right. Is there a connection between the first 2 that makes the 3rd one correct? Is it a syllogism? What do you think?
So if I had, if you don't study math daily, you won't be good math.
Okay. That was your last sentence? Or
My first.
oh, your first sentence was, wait a minute.
If you don't study math daily, you won't do good math.
So that would be the converse of the statement. So you also have to change the order of them. So I had the not doing good at math had to come first to be a contrapositive. Yeah, so you both have to negate them and then switch them. Yeah, so you got halfway there. Yeah, and the thing is though, a converse isn't necessarily true if the original statement is true. It kind of depends on the statements. So But a contrapositive is always true if the first sentence was true. Okay, so this should be the first sentence. The not doing good in math has to come first, then not studying math daily has to go second, to be the contrapositive of my first premise above. So let's see, if you do not do good math, then you will not study math daily. If you do not pass your math class, then you did not do good at math. So for a syllogism to happen, the ending of one of those first two sentences has to match the beginning of the other. Does that happen here? Does the ending of one of those sentences match the beginning of the other for the first two? Yeah. The you did not do good math is the end of this sentence, and it's the beginning of that sentence right there. So then I can skip that middle part and just say, if you did not pass your math class, then you did not study math daily. So turns out, given an original set of implications, two premises, and a conclusion, their contrapositives will work out the same way. Now notice the order got switched. So here it was P, Q, Q, R. Here it's P, Q in the second sentence, Q, R in the first sentence. But that doesn't matter as long as there's a connection. And that connection is end of one to the beginning of the other. That's the logical flow to make a real conclusion. Otherwise you have a false conclusion. But we do have a real one here. So this is a good conclusion that if the conclusion is true, the third sentence, that means it's called a syllogism. All right, so contrapositive means given a sentence, like if you study math daily, then you will do good in math. That's an implication or a conditional. You flip it and negate both parts, which is the new sentence there. That's how you make a contrapositive. Truth of one implies the truth of the other. All right, so next we're going to move on to some common logical fallacies. And it turns out there's a ton of things people say that are wrong, and they have these common threads to them. Let's shrink that down a touch. And so I was just kind of looking at the news this morning, trying to find stuff in the news that might relate to what we're doing here. And you can't look at the news and not see something about presidential debates and politics and what Trump said or what Clinton said. So I picked on that a little bit. So an ad hominem argument is one where we attack the person making the argument. It doesn't matter what they said is true or false. We just attack them. What Gary said can't be right. He wears sneakers every day. Can't trust somebody who wears sneakers, right? That's nonsense. So, for example, I've heard arguments like this before. So this one is true. Hillary Clinton claims that education is important and she feels it should be free for middle class. I've heard that in her campaign speeches. It's been in news articles. Somebody might respond to that by saying, what does she know? She's rich. Right, putting her down for being rich, okay? Meaning there's something wrong with her claim because she's rich. So they're attacking the person, not the argument, okay? And that's a very common thing. And it's hard not to do that about emotional issues, and political things tend to be emotional issues more often than not. Appeal to ignorance. Just because something hasn't been proven yet doesn't mean it's true or false. So since the Supreme Court has not ruled that the police stop and frisk techniques are unconstitutional, then they must be all right. Okay. Well, just because the case hasn't gotten to the Supreme Court yet doesn't mean what's happening is all right. Okay. And the whole stop and frisk thing is something I've heard in the debates and on the news with the presidential campaign. It turns out it's gotten to the New York Supreme Court, but it hasn't gotten to the United States Supreme Court. And New York didn't say that stop and frisk is bad. They said the way the New York Police Department did it was bad. Right? So wording is very important with stuff like that. Appeal to authority. So a lot of times people say something's true because I read it in the Bible, because I saw it on the news. There's lots of claims that Donald Trump doesn't believe in global warming, and he's stated it's a hoax. So I don't believe in global warming. I think it's a hoax because Donald Trump tweeted it was so. Okay, so that's not a logical argument. Is Donald Trump an expert in the science of global warming? Oh, no. Right, so I can't use him as an expert to say that's why I believe it's a hoax. I mean, I can say that all I want, but there's no foundation to me saying it. Okay? So some authority. Doesn't matter what that authority is. So that's the idea of appeal to authority. So that's common. Appeal to consequences. This is a great one. You shouldn't drink alcohol because it leads to car crashes and teen pregnancies. Okay, so that's two controversial items there. Maybe, maybe not. That's a pretty bad consequence, but it's not necessarily a logical reason why you shouldn't. Okay, maybe if I said you shouldn't get drunk and drive your car because that leads to crashes. Okay. That's all right. Or you shouldn't get drunk and at a party and take somebody home with you, because you may not do that if you're straight. That's a different story, but the way I phrase that is you shouldn't drink alcohol at all, because there are some bad consequences. Right? So I'm appealing to the fact that there can be some bad consequences, but does that mean you shouldn't ever touch alcohol? Doesn't mean alcohol is not dangerous, but I don't have a logical connection between those two that's direct. So anytime somebody tries to say, this can't be true because it has a bad consequence, or this has to be true because it has a good consequence. Okay? You ever hear of wishful thinking? You ever been accused of that? Okay, we believe something because we want to, because we like the consequence. That's the same thing as an appeal to consequences. So wishful thinking is one example of bad reasoning in the appeal to consequences category. And again, a lot of these are driven by emotion. So that just reminded me I'm a father. And so I will likely use that alcohol thing with my children, even though as a math teacher I know it's really not legitimate. But that's what we do. We are emotional and manipulative. It's part of the human brain. Okay, so this is a good one. My father says if you don't vote for Donald Trump, then you're voting for Hillary Clinton.
No.
What's the problem with that argument? It's a false dilemma. There's other people to vote for. Or you could choose to not vote. That is an exercise of your right to vote. I don't like those candidates. My choice is to not vote for one of them. That's okay. It's our right to do so. So my father's claiming there's only two options. If I don't pick one, I must be picking the other, but he's ignoring the fact that there's other options. Circular reasoning, and this is one that happens a lot, and a lot of times it happens because we have these ideas stuck in our head that have been kind of drilled into us in various places. Like, only a mentally ill person would kill someone, so anyone who kills someone is automatically mentally ill. No, that's not true. Okay, we could draw a Venn diagram and show it's not true. So circular reasoning. We say you have to be mentally ill to kill someone, then we say to kill someone you have to be mentally ill. We just said the same thing forward and backwards. Doesn't mean anything. Circular reasoning. That one's pretty popular. All right, what else do we have here? The straw man argument involves misrepresenting an argument in a less favorable way. So Hillary Clinton wants to spend more money on education. Well, there was that quote where she wants to make education free to middle class families. Okay, so she would have to spend more money on education to make that happen. That means she's going to raise your taxes. So I'm trying to say her claim is bad because there's this thing that everyone else thinks is going to be bad. Okay. Who wants their taxes raised? Well, I don't really, although I like all the services I get, like roads and education and police and fire and all that. But nobody likes not having much money, so I'm trying to misrepresent her claim. Is it possible she could spend more money on education without raising taxes? How?
You just
Shift money from somewhere else. Yeah. So here's another way I could throw a straw man on that. Same start. Hillary Clinton wants to spend more money on education. That means she's going to be taking money from our senior citizens and our veterans and our ability to protect ourselves. Same thing. I'm throwing you in a different direction, trying to fish you off to say this is a bad claim because of this other possible outcome. I don't know what's the outcome. It's just a possible outcome, and we don't like it. And that's called a straw man argument. Okay. And again, the book, hopefully you're reading that, has different examples of each of these. I use the same description of each of them. Post hoc. So post hoc is just trying to claim that because two things happen sequentially, they have to be true. I stayed up last night for a test, and I didn't do good on the test, so I should not stay up late studying ever again. Well, okay, maybe some people believe that if you don't get a good night's sleep, you won't think clearly. But the key here is these things two happen one after the other. It's not necessarily the problem that you stayed up all night. There could be another common denominator. Okay, like what could be another common variable that would affect both of those? You worked all day. Okay, that's one, right? And if you worked all day, you might not have time to study early. Right, and that happens a lot. We don't study regularly, and then we try to do this binge studying, and that often doesn't go well, especially if we try to do binge studying and we don't get sleep, right? So there's other stuff going on that I'm not taking into the picture here, and that's usually what the post hoc is. There's some other common thing, or many other common things going on. I'm working too much, I'm not studying enough other times. So that one's common. Let's see. Correlation implies causation. So kids who eat breakfast do well in school. You ever hear that one before?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there is data that kids who ate breakfast did well in school. So if you eat breakfast, you will be a better student. Okay. So there could be something else going on, right? It could be there's other things going on at home that make a better student and make the kids do breakfast. But it's not the breakfast that's making the kids do better. It's other stuff in the background. So it's kind of similar to the post hoc. There's other stuff going on that we might not be able to, that we don't have to explain that. Here's another one. Does everyone know that average global temperatures have been rising for a long time now, like 100 years? Okay. Did you also know that 100 years ago there used to be a lot of pirates?
Yep.
And now there's not.
No, there's still some.
Not as many as there used to be. There's less, right? Pirating just kind of went out of fashion, right? There's not as many. So there, because we have fewer pirates, the average global temperature has risen. So if you want to prevent global warming, become a pirate.
I think you're on something.
Save the world, become a pirate, right? So that's, again, a core. Just because one thing happened and another thing happened doesn't mean they're related. Okay. And this website has some cute graphics about this. One of which is about Nicolas Cage that just cracks me up.
Oh, God.
Right there.
Did you have that Nicolas Cage example last time too?
Maybe, I can't remember. Oh, this is a funny one here. Let me blow it up so you can see it better. The age of Miss America and murders by steam, hot vapors, and other hot objects.
Apparently age.
They both tend to follow the same pattern. So clearly, the age of Miss America affects murders by, or the other way around, the more murders there are, the more likely Miss America is going to be young or old. You think those things are connected?
No.
No. Right? But correlation means they change in the same way. That's correlation. Causation means one made the other happen. Okay, so here's another one. Per capita consumption of mozzarella cheese has been on the rise, and the awarding of civil engineering doctorates has also been on the rise.
Oh, I guess it means
So clearly the more mozzarella cheese we eat, the more engineers we produce.
Oh, wow.
Well,
You ate all the blocks of cheese you could have.
Okay. Woo! So, craziness, huh? Oh, mozzarella cheese is the reason for global warming.
Dumbest.
Well, I guess I'm causing global warming.
Okay. U.S. crude oil imports from Norway. Drivers killed in collisions with railroad trains. So more drivers have been killed in railroad trains because we've been importing more crude oil from Norway.
I think they're just stupid and trying to raise
Or the other way around,
Oil
I guess this is going down, right? So not getting crude oil from Norway means we're saving lives.
Yeah, or just trying to play chicken with the train.
What happened in 2002? Just all of a sudden people decided to just.
They're like,
Like chicken with the train,
we're all immortal, we can't die.
That's some weird. Where's the?
Can't die.
Let's see. That's not. Oh, this is. Let's see. The number of people who died by becoming entangled in their bed sheets.
How?
Versus the total revenue generated by
How?
skiing facilities.
How can you die being taken
Oh,
by your
yeah, I
blankets?
totally can relate to
What
that.
are
I get
you
tangled in my
doing?
sheets.
What's fascinating is that we collect this data.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And that actually just reminded me that the CDC has data on people dying by becoming entangled in their bed sheets, but we don't have adequate data on how many people are really killed in police shootings. That's not good.
That's true.
There's no national database for that.
That's messed up.
That's messed up. Yeah.
Say, please tell me how
What
you
the
still
hell?
die for being
You can see
entangled.
the per capita consumption of sour cream tends to be in line with motorcycle riders killed in non-collision transport accidents. Oh. Where's my favorite one? Chicken, Kentucky.
Wait, what about Kentucky now?
Okay, that's a funny one, yeah. People who drowned after falling out of a fishing boat versus the marriage rate in Kentucky.
Damn you, Kentuckians.
Okay,
I
so
know where not to go to get married.
yeah,
Exactly.
Nicholas Cage. That was here. Oh, here it is. Number of people who drowned by falling into a swimming pool versus the number of films Nicholas Cage appeared in.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna kill myself because it's on the Cage in the movie.
Poor Nicholas Cage.
Okay.
All right, I like him. He's all right.
I didn't like him.
Okay, so the correlation versus causation is funny, but it does happen a lot. Just because two things happen to change either positively or negatively together doesn't mean one affected the other. It's really easy to show two things change the same way. It's really hard to show one caused the other to change. That's hard, and we're not able to do that very much. Okay, so that was all fun. All right, so like I promised, I've gone through just about everything in the book with you in class, so now I'm going to set you all free to go to the lab, get on a computer, and maybe you can help each other with any problems that you get stuck on, and then I will be here to help also.
Okay. Yay!
Oh, say.
Totally fun.
Stop the broadcast
Good,
for a
well,
sec,
no,
I'm
grab
on my
myself.
way.